So, have you ever actually stopped to wonder what fundamentally determines sexual orientation? Like, is it biology, upbringing, something else entirely? Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the biological architecture of sexual orientation. We're going to look at what modern science actually tells us about how and why some men are gay. And honestly, the answer we find in the data is way more fascinating and complex than most people realize. We're going to treat this just like an architectural blueprint, breaking down the foundation, the structural framework, and the environment of human attraction. Okay, let's just dive right into this. Our agenda today moves naturally from the microscopic to the macroscopic. So we're hitting 1, the myth of choice, 2, the genetic blueprint, 3, development in the womb, 4, wiring the brain, 5, the environmental factor, and finally, 6, the evolutionary puzzle. Starting with section 1, the myth of choice, or setting the foundation. Right, so is sexual orientation a choice? You hear this question all the time in public discourse, right? For decades, it was heavily politicized and debated. But when you strip away all that noise and look purely at human biology and psychology, we have to ask what the actual scientific consensus tells us. This fundamental question is really the perfect starting point for our teardown of these popular misconceptions. Well, the answer is incredibly clear. The overwhelming scientific consensus is that sexual orientation is absolutely not a choice. Literally no major medical, psychiatric, or psychological organization in the world, and yeah, that includes the American Psychological Association, the World Health Organization, and the AMA, classifies homosexuality as a disorder or a decision. The science is definitive here. A person just doesn't decide to be gay any more than a straight person decides to be straight. It's an intrinsic characteristic. Moving to section 2, the genetic blueprint, our microscopic foundations. So if it's not a choice, what actually causes it? Let's throw on our safety goggles, zoom way in, and start with the literal blueprint of human life, our genetics. To understand this, researchers look at twins. And identical twins have been especially revealing for scientists. Think about it like this. If one identical twin is gay, the other has a significantly higher chance of also being gay when you compare them to fraternal twins. Now, since identical twins share exactly 100% of their DNA, and fraternal twins don't, this huge jump in probability points directly to a real, concrete genetic component at play. But how much of a role do those genes actually play? Well, in 2019, a massive landmark study in the prestigious journal Science analyzed the genomes of nearly 500,000 people, and they gave us a number. Researchers estimated that genetics accounts for roughly 8 to 25% of the variation in sexual orientation. That is a pretty huge slice of the pie. But, as you can probably guess from that percentage, it leaves a lot of room for other factors. So, genetics isn't the whole story. Now, what's genuinely fascinating is how this data reframes our entire understanding of DNA. For a long time, the media was absolutely obsessed with finding a single, isolated gay gene. But that 2019 study, it proved that that just doesn't exist. Instead, the genetic blueprint is more like this massive, complex web. There are hundreds of different genetic variants scattered across a person's DNA, and each one plays a tiny, cumulative role. It's an intricate symphony of genetics, not just one isolated note. All right, on to section 3, development in the womb, or as we're calling it, the construction environment. Since genetics only gets us 8 to 25% of the way there, we have to look at what happens after conception but before birth. Research shows the hormonal environment a fetus is exposed to is incredibly powerful. We're specifically talking about androgens, male hormones, like testosterone. During gestation, there are these critical, super-sensitive windows of brain development, and the levels of androgens floating around during those specific windows can fundamentally shape how the fetal brain gets wired for future attraction. Basically, the womb acts as a sculptor for the brain's romantic compass. And that leads us to one of the most wild discoveries in this entire field, the fraternal birth order effect. Studies consistently show that the more older biological brothers a man has, the statistically more likely he is to be gay. But why? Well, the leading scientific explanation points to maternal immune responses. When a male pregnancy occurs, some mothers develop an immune response to a specific protein involved in male brain development. With every subsequent male pregnancy, that immune response gets a little stronger, and this might gradually alter how the brain develops in later sons, directly influencing their sexual orientation. I mean, prenatal biology in action like that, it's just mind-blowing. Section 4, wiring the brain, our final structure. We've looked at the genes, we've looked at the womb, so let's check out the physical organism itself. In the early 90s, a neuroscientist named Simon LeVay published a truly groundbreaking study. He looked at a tiny region of the hypothalamus called INH3. The hypothalamus is basically the brain's control center for sexual behavior. What LeVay found was that this specific region was, on average, measurably smaller in gay men than it was in straight men. Actually, in gay men, the INH3 region was very similar in size to that found in women. We are talking about literal physical structural differences in the brain here. And hey, this isn't just dusty 1990s science either. Fast forward to today, and advanced brain imaging continuously backs this up. Modern neuroimaging shows persistent, measurable differences in how the brains of gay and straight men are structurally organized, and even how they light up and respond to various stimuli. This completely reinforces the reality that sexual orientation isn't just a state of mind, it has a real, hardwired neurological basis.
Section 5. The environmental factor.
So if genetics and prenatal biology build the house, what exactly does the environment do? Well, it's really more like decorating the house. We need to quickly bust some very persistent myths right here. Does your childhood environment make you gay? The definitive, scientifically backed answer is no. Extensive research has completely failed to link things like parenting styles to sexual orientation. Growing up with a certain type of parent, your social environment, childhood experiences, none of that actually causes homosexuality in any reliable way. The crucial takeaway is this. The environment obviously plays a massive role in a person's life, but it's a role of expression, not creation. The environment you grow up in, your family, your culture, your society, influences how safe and comfortable you feel exploring, accepting, and expressing your orientation. But it literally does not create the underlying biological attraction itself. The house is already built. The environment just dictates if you feel safe opening the front door. Finally, Section 6, the evolutionary puzzle. Let's take a step back to the macro view. This brings up a puzzle that trips a lot of people up when they look at this through a purely biological lens. If homosexuality doesn't directly lead to biological reproduction, why has it persisted so successfully through human evolution? Scientists actually have a couple of leading theories here. First is the kin selection hypothesis. This suggests that historically, gay men may have contributed heavily to the survival of their siblings' kids, acting as extra providers and protectors, which indirectly passes on shared family genes. The second theory is the female fertility advantage. This suggests the exact same genetic variants that influence homosexuality in men might actually boost fertility when they show up in female relatives. So both theories point to a net evolutionary advantage for the family line. And this brilliantly illustrates a much larger truth. Homosexuality isn't some modern phenomenon. Its persistent presence across absolutely all human cultures and throughout all of recorded history strongly suggests it isn't an anomaly or a glitch in the system. It serves a vital, natural role in the broader spectrum of human biology. It's a permanent and measurable part of our species' diversity. So, as we wrap up our architectural teardown today, I want to leave you with a thought. We've just seen that being gay is the result of an incredibly complex interaction of genetics, prenatal biology, and brain development. It is definitely not a mental illness, it's not a dysfunction, and it is for sure not a choice. Knowing all of this, how does this scientific reality change the way we view human diversity? As science keeps uncovering more every single year, the picture just gets clearer. Human attraction is a beautifully complex biological reality. Thanks for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope it sparked your curiosity to dig into the science even more. Keep exploring and keep asking questions.